Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In regards to today's video, I hope you're all ready to hear some hot garbage coming out of Trudeau's mouth, because yesterday he was in British Columbia, which seems to be the only province that keeps welcoming him back. And during that press conference, he was talking about a myriad of things like renting, housing, the carbon tax. And when it came to the carbon tax, this is what he had to say.
Next question.
Hi there, Ethan Sawyer, CBC News. My question is about the carbon tax. Are you open to sitting down with the premiers to discuss their concerns about the carbon tax increase?
Over the past number of years, I have sat down with every premier in the country to talk about everything that we are doing together to fight climate change and everything we need to continue to do, not just to fight climate change, but to put more money in the pockets of Canadians. Conservative premiers across this country are misleading Canadians, are not telling the truth.
Now that's pretty rich coming from this guy who hasn't been able to give an honest answer to anything in the past year to 2 years, let alone his full term that he's been in there. But it's interesting that he kept emphasizing there the conservative leaders when we've heard of liberal premiers, liberal MPs, and liberal MPPs who also don't approve of the carbon tax. So right off the bat, he's giving false information that he's complaining about conservatives doing. But let's let him continue a little bit more.
8 out of 10 families across the country in federal backstop jurisdictions make more money with the Canada carbon rebate than it costs with the price on pollution. So not only are we fighting climate change and reducing emissions, but we're putting more money back in the pockets of families, particularly in low and middle income families across the country. It's basic math that the Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed time and time again.
And here we are with another ridiculous claim, this basic math. Let me ask you guys, do you feel like the carbon tax has given you more money in your rebate? Does it sound like something the government would want to do? Take a certain portion, but don't worry, we're going to actually give you more money back? Again, it doesn't really make sense. And then he talks about the Parliamentary Budget Officer, which we've seen on multiple occasions say the opposite of what he said. Yes, 8 out of 10, if you're only looking at fiscal, as we've covered on this channel, get more money. But if you add in the economic, it's actually the inverse. 8 out of 10 get less money. They're worse off. But hey, let's let the guy continue talking.
But for ideological reasons or reasons of pure partisanship, conservative politicians across this country are not telling the truth to Canadians. And that's why I called them out. And I'm going to continue to call them out and remind them that if they really don't like our approach to pricing pollution, they can develop their own approach. Here in BC, that's what a BC more conservative government did years ago in creating Canada's first price on pollution. Quebec did the same. Now, we expect everyone to hit the same level of ambition in the fight against climate change, because that's fair and that's important if we're going to actually make a difference in the extreme weather events that we're seeing across the country and around the world that are coming. So yes, people need to fight climate change, but any province that wants to put forward a similarly robust way to fight climate change, but do it in a way that works for them, is more than welcome to, and has been from the very beginning of our price on pollution. But conservative premiers in general would rather complain and attack and mislead Canadians for narrow political gain.
So if I follow this guy's logic, he says any province can make their own plan as long as it's better than ours. Yet theirs is clearly failing and people hate it. But in order for a province to not have to do this one, they have to make one that's better, which would probably mean it would be worse than theirs, because theirs is the standard according to him. And an interesting part on that note is Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe actually was in a committee hearing today and said this about the carbon pricing.
and very much, I think, important to Canadians, as this is one of the policies, and they are stacking, that is making life more unaffordable for not only Saskatchewan residents, but all Canadians as a whole. It's making industries less competitive. Those are industries that employ people in my community and quite likely in yours as well. And it is really showing no measurable impact when it comes to reducing emissions. And I would just point to the inflationary aspect of the carbon tax specifically today. And that was when the latest consumer price index came out. Saskatchewan today is at 1.7%, down under the 2% projected target that the Bank of Canada had hit, 1 full point lower than the Canadian average. And Statistics Canada had said specifically that was due to a decision that the Saskatchewan government made to remove the carbon tax from home heating. And so you can imagine what would happen to our CPI nationwide if we were to pause, first of all, and then remove the consumer carbon tax on Canadians.
But also, he talks about small political gains. Well, as we've all seen and we've heard the reports, if there was an election today, the Conservatives would vastly win over the Liberals. And even in some of the polls, they're talking about the Liberals going down to third place within the House. You can see it here. If an election were held today, 41% of committed voters would vote Conservative, with Liberals at 23% and the NDP at 19%, the Greens at 4%. The Bloc is at 33% in Quebec, meaning they would outseat the Liberals in the House. And there's a little funny, from Canada Proud here, there's a little funny chart here of all the seats that would be held. And clearly, Liberals in third position, that's not good news. And if we move away from the actual House of Commons and we go to the map of Canada, well, it's looking pretty blue to me. Outside of the general Montreal, Ottawa, a little bit of the GTA, Moncton being red, look at the blue that's taken over. And so for Justin to talk about small time gains when the Conservatives and Pierre have actually been doing a really good job at getting ahead, kind of funny. But again, let's listen to the rest of what he has to say.
Because of both an ideological objection, apparently, to fighting climate change, but also to an unwillingness to recognize that we are putting more money in people's pockets with rebate checks that Pierre Poilievre wants to take away from Canadians. And to put an even clearer point on it, we announced a doubling of the rural top-up that hits millions of Canadians across the country, and that's being held up in the House of Commons by Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative Party that are preventing that doubling of the rural top-up, money in the pockets of Canadian living in rural communities across the country, from having that money to help with the high cost of living on every different level. That's irresponsible by Conservative premiers, and I'm going to continue to call out all Conservative politicians who are doing that.
So again, the hypocrisy is unreal. He admits that Canadians are struggling on all different aspects of living and says it's irresponsible of the Conservatives. Wouldn't it be irresponsible of you for allowing it to get to that for the Canadians and now not helping them by increasing the tax on April 1st, which is in a few days? The mental gymnastics this guy does is absolutely crazy. And he started off this actual press conference by talking about renters, as I mentioned, and talking about how he's trying to help renters acquire their first house by allowing now your credit score to reflect how you've made rental payments regularly, and that'll increase your credit score, allowing you to be easier to get housing.
Renters matter, and young Canadians put a lot of their hard-earned money towards rent. We think that should count for a lot more. So today we're announcing new protections for renters and new pathways to home ownership. As part of our upcoming budget, we're going to create a Canadian Renters Bill of Rights. It would create a nationwide standard for lease agreements, give renters a clear history of apartment pricing so they can bargain fairly, and make sure they have more agency. We're also going to launch a new legal aid fund that will protect tenants against unfairly rising rents, rent evictions, and bad landlords. And finally, we're going to help you make your rent count towards you becoming a homeowner. We'll do that by making sure that the fact that you pay your rent every month, which remember is a pretty significant amount of money, that payment and that demonstrated reliability that you've shown over months and years is taken into account when you apply for a mortgage. We're going to amend the Canadian Mortgage Charter and call on landlords, banks, credit bureaus and others to make sure that your rental history is taken into account in your credit score. This will make it easier to qualify for a mortgage or even qualify you at a lower rate. And just think about all the other things that'll come from having a better credit score.
Now, I don't know who came up with this brain dead idea, but I can see this affecting a lot more people in a negative way than a positive way. Trudeau likes to espout so much about low-income individuals and helping them out, yet these people are the ones who already have poor credit scores and are struggling to pay the rent or a phone bill or a credit card bill. We just saw a report not too long ago and a few videos back saying defaults on mortgages are at an all-time high, and a lot of people, specifically in the younger age, are racking up a whole lot of debt on credit cards because they can't figure out whether they need to pay for their rent, pay for groceries. They don't make enough money at work. So now you're going to throw their credit score into this and it's just going to go the opposite way. But hey, this is just my opinion. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought about this one. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate all the new subscribers, members, everybody who comments. Appreciate it. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.